The stench of rotting flesh filled the papal courtroom. Maggots fell from the defendant's eye sockets onto the marble floor. But this wasn't a horror movie. This was the Vatican in 897 AD. And the man on trial? He'd been dead for 7 months. Pope Formosus was about to face the most grotesque trial in Christian history. His corpse would be dressed in papal robes, propped up in a chair, and forced to answer charges of perjury and illegal coronation. What you're about to hear is so disturbing that the Catholic Church tried to erase it from history for over 1,000 years. This is the Cadaver Synod, where medieval justice met medieval madness. January 897 AD, the Lateran Palace, Rome. Pope Stephen VI has just ordered the most insane trial in papal history. He wants to put his predecessor on trial. One small problem: Pope Formosus has been rotting in his tomb for 7 months. Stephen's solution? Dig him up anyway. Today, I'm taking you inside the most twisted chapter of papal politics. We'll witness a decomposing corpse being cross-examined, see how medieval justice turned into medieval horror, and discover why this trial was so shocking that it triggered a revolution in Rome itself. Because when you put a rotting pope on trial, you don't just break the law, you break reality itself. The setup: why dig up a dead pope? To understand this madness, we need to go back to 891 AD. Pope Formosus is elected after a bitter political fight. He's 75 years old, experienced, respected by many, but he has enemies. Powerful enemies who think he stole the papacy. Formosus makes a decision that will haunt him beyond the grave. He crowns Arnulf of Carinthia as Holy Roman Emperor. This enrages the Roman nobility who supported a different candidate. But Formosus doesn't live to see the consequences. He dies in April 896, probably thinking his troubles are over. He's wrong. Death is just the beginning of his nightmare. Enter Pope Stephen VI. Stephen VI becomes Pope in May 896. He's young, ambitious, and absolutely obsessed with destroying Formosus's legacy. But here's the problem. You can't prosecute a dead man. Or can you? Stephen consults canon law. He talks to his advisors, and somehow they convince themselves that yes, you can put a corpse on trial. The logic is medieval and twisted. If Formosus was never legitimately pope, then all his acts were invalid. Every priest he ordained, every bishop he appointed, every decision he made, all of it would be erased from history. But to prove Formosus was illegitimate, they need a trial. A real trial, with a real defendant, even if that defendant is 7 months dead. The exhumation. Picture this scene if you can stomach it. January 897. A cold Roman morning. Papal guards march to St. Peter's Basilica. They're carrying shovels, not swords. The tomb of Pope Formosus is opened for the first time since his burial. What they find is exactly what you'd expect after 7 months underground. A partially decomposed corpse in papal vestments. The flesh has turned black and green. The eyes have rotted away, leaving empty sockets. The smell is overwhelming, sweet, putrid, nauseating. But Stephen's orders are clear. Bring the body to the Lateran Palace. The trial will proceed as planned, dressing the dead. Here's where the story gets even more grotesque. The corpse can't appear in court in burial clothes. It needs to be dressed properly for trial. Papal servants, imagine having this job, carefully remove the rotting burial vestments. They dress the decomposing body in fresh papal robes, white silk, gold thread, sacred symbols, all draped over putrefying flesh. They place the papal mitre on the skull. They put rings on the skeletal fingers. They even try to position the body upright in a chair. But rigor mortis has long since passed. The corpse keeps slumping forward, so they tie it to the chair with rope. The Pope of Rome, bound like a criminal. The trial begins. The Lateran Palace courtroom fills with bishops, cardinals, and Roman nobles. Everyone knows this is insane, but no one dares oppose Pope Stephen VI. The charges are read aloud to the rotting corpse. Perjury, coveting the papacy, violating canon law. Each accusation is directed at the empty eye sockets of the defendant. Stephen VI himself serves as prosecutor. He paces in front of the corpse, shouting accusations. You violated the sacred canons. You abandoned your true bishopric. You usurped the papal throne. The corpse, obviously, says nothing. But Stephen has thought of that too. The deacon's voice. A young deacon is forced to serve as the corpse's defense attorney. He sits next to the rotting body, trying not to vomit from the smell. When Stephen asks the corpse a question, the deacon is supposed to answer. But what can he say? How do you defend a decomposing pope against charges of illegal coronation? The deacon tries his best. His Holiness acted within his papal authority. The coronation of Arnulf was legitimate. These charges are without merit. But his voice shakes with every word. He knows this trial is a farce. Everyone knows it. The verdict. The trial lasts for hours. Witnesses testify against the corpse. Documents are read aloud to the empty eye sockets. Stephen VI works himself into a frenzy, screaming at the rotting remains. Finally, he calls for a verdict. Guilty on all charges. The punishment? Posthumous excommunication. All of Formosus's papal acts are declared invalid. Every priest he ordained must be reordained. Every decision he made is erased from church records. But Stephen isn't finished. He has one more humiliation planned. The desecration continued. The corpse is stripped of its papal vestments. The sacred robes are torn away, revealing the putrefying flesh beneath. The papal ring, the symbol of papal authority, is ripped from the skeletal finger. But Stephen VI isn't done humiliating his predecessor. He orders the corpse's blessing fingers cut off, the same fingers that had blessed thousands of faithful Catholics. Hack, hack, hack. 3 fingers severed from the rotting hand. The crowd watches in horrified silence as papal authority is literally dismembered. The final indignity. What happens next is so grotesque it defies belief. Stephen orders the mutilated corpse dragged through the streets of Rome. Citizens are forced to watch as their former pope is pulled behind horses. Pieces of decomposed flesh fall off along the way. Dogs follow the procession, fighting over scraps of papal remains. The destination? The Tiber River. Stephen's final act of revenge. The corpse of Pope Formosus is thrown into the muddy waters like garbage. The man who once held the keys to heaven floats face down in Roman sewage. The people's revolt. But Stephen VI has made a catastrophic miscalculation. The Roman people are horrified, not because they loved Formosus, many didn't, but because this trial violates every concept of human dignity. Even medieval Romans have limits, and putting a rotting corpse on trial crosses every single one. Riots break out across the city. Blasphemy, they shout. Sacrilege, this is not justice. The crowds march on the Lateran Palace. They're not just angry, they're disgusted. Stephen has turned the papacy into a horror show, and the people have had enough. The miracle. Here's where the story takes a supernatural turn. A monk fishing in the Tiber River makes an impossible discovery. He pulls up the corpse of Pope Formosus. After days in the water, it should be completely decomposed. Instead, witnesses claim the body is perfectly preserved. The severed fingers have somehow reattached. The flesh looks fresh, almost alive. Word spreads quickly through Rome. God has vindicated Pope Formosus. The trial was not just illegal, it was blasphemous. Stephen's downfall. The revolution reaches the papal palace. Angry Romans storm the building. They find Stephen VI cowering in his chambers. The man who put a corpse on trial is about to face his own judgment. But the Romans don't want a trial. They want immediate justice. Stephen is dragged from his throne, stripped of his papal vestments, thrown into prison. Within months, he's dead. Some say he was strangled. Others claim he was poisoned. The official cause? Natural causes, sure. Just like Formosus died of natural causes 7 months after his burial. The aftermath. The new pope, Theodore II, immediately reverses everything. The Cadaver Synod is declared invalid. Formosus is posthumously restored to the papacy. His body is reburied with full papal honors. The priests he ordained are declared legitimate. His papal acts are restored to church records. But the damage is done. The papacy's reputation is shattered. How can people trust an institution that puts corpses on trial? The cover-up. For centuries, the Catholic Church tried to pretend this never happened. The Cadaver Synod was too embarrassing to acknowledge. Official histories glossed over it. Seminary students weren't taught about it. It became the Vatican's dirty little secret. But the records survived. Hidden in monastery libraries, preserved in Byzantine chronicles. The truth always finds a way. The deeper horror. Here's what makes this story truly terrifying. It's not just about one crazy pope. It's about what happens when power becomes completely divorced from reality. Stephen VI wasn't just putting a corpse on trial. He was trying to rewrite history itself, to erase a man's entire existence, to make it as if Pope Formosus had never lived. That's not justice. That's not even revenge. That's the complete breakdown of human reason. The Cadaver Synod lasted only 1 day, but its impact echoed through centuries. It showed the world what happens when religious authority goes completely insane. When politics becomes more important than basic human dignity. When hatred outlasts death itself. Pope Formosus was guilty of one thing: making enemies who couldn't let go. Even 7 months in the grave wasn't enough to satisfy their rage. They needed to humiliate him, desecrate him, erase him from history. But in the end, they only erased themselves. Stephen VI died in disgrace. His supporters were exiled or executed. The Cadaver Synod became a symbol of papal corruption. And Pope Formosus? He got the last laugh. His body was restored to honor. His papacy was vindicated. His legacy survived, while Stephen VI is remembered only as the pope who was crazy enough to put a corpse on trial. What do you think drove Stephen VI to such extremes? Was it politics, madness, or something darker? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you want to hear more about the Vatican's darkest secrets, subscribe and hit the bell. Next week, I'm covering the Pope who sold the papacy to the highest bidder. Trust me, medieval corruption gets even worse. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.